Good morning, everybody. It is Friday. Welcome to your horror hotline for July 27th, 2018. My name is Tim Long, one half of Horror Movie Yearbook. Hey, we've got a new episode out today. Stop what you're doing right now and go listen to it because we're talking about Fear, starring Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon and William Peterson. Listening to our Fear podcast is more important than literally any other current event that is going on in the world today. It's the first thing you need to do this morning. So it should be out. It should be in your feed right now as you hear this. So just stop it. Stop whatever you're doing and go download and listen to our Fear recap and podcast, because we're also talking about Comic-Con, and we're also talking about, Willie and I get into one of our first disagreements, maybe ever. I know some people that listen have been looking forward to this. It's not that exciting of a disagreement. We're disagreeing on Blumhouse's Truth or Dare. So, there you go. We had one. But we're not going to be talking about that today. Today we are going to be talking about Castle Rock. Episode 2. Castle Rock, Episode 2, Habeas Corpus. Let's jump right in. Thank you to the Stephen King Wikia for the plot description I'm going to go by. This should hopefully go much smoother than yesterday, where I attempted to make my own plot description, and I'm sure it went horribly. But where you start at Shawshank State Penitentiary, Officer Dennis Zalewski investigates the prisoner, that's Bill Skarsgård's character. They investigate prisoners' apparent escape, only to find that everything he saw on the monitors did not happen. There are no bodies, and the prisoner, the kid, if you will, is still in his cell. Then there was an opening credits sequence. Did I miss that on the last episode? Was there an opening credits on the first episode, or did they just jump right into the story? Either way, it was I love opening credit sequences. One of the worst things about Lost is they didn't have one. So then we jump back into the story again. This episode is narrated by Warrendale Lacey, Terry O'Quinn's character. It's in the framing device is in the form of a letter to Alan Pangborn, Scott Glenn's character. In it, he says, "It's not luck, it's a plan, and not God's either," Lacey says in the letter. We see Warrendale Lacey's brother, dressed as a mascot, jump from the top of the school during a football game to kill himself. And then the narration says, "People say it wasn't me, it's this place, and they're right." I should add, I kind of laughed at the mascot jumping. I know I'm not supposed to, and I'm sorry if that offend some people, but I kind of chuckled. It's just, I've been to a lot of football games in my life, and mascots can be very annoying. I don't want to see them jump off of things and kill themselves, the people inside, but there was a part of me that found it kind of cathartic, because, yeah, mascots can be a bit of a pain. Then he went on to say, the letter goes on to say, "God doesn't take requests, then one beautiful day God answered." These are kind of the lines that stuck out to me, because then we jump to a flashback of a young Lacey building the cell that they would find the prisoner, the kid, in. This also gave me fuzzy feelings to those early seasons of Lost and John Locke, I'm not going to lie. Henry goes to visit Lacey's widow, Martha, and takes the opportunity to look through Lacey's belongings. He finds prayer cards, news articles, and verse of the day calendars that all end on the same page. Even at that hour of the night... Yeah, this is the page. This is what it reads on the verse of the day calendar. "Even at that hour of the night, the jailer cared for them and washed their wounds. Then he and everyone in his household were immediately baptized." This is where we jump into a little bit more of the religion of Castle Rock. We get there's quite a bit of it in this episode. We get kind of a feeling for the church. If this show wants to be truly faithful to King, we'll get like an entire episode devoted to maybe a diatribe against organized religion, because that seems to occur quite a bit in King's book. King has called organized religion a very dangerous tool that's been misused by a lot of people. King is a believer, though. He's got an interesting worldview, so, and you can check that out on your own. He has talked plenty about it. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of the main church and a lot more religious aspects in Castle Rock moving forward. Henry is caught by Martha and ejected from the house, but as he goes, Henry notices, Martha, of course, is the wife of Lacey, but as he goes, Henry notices that the basement door has a heavy lock on it. Taking cues from what he found in Lacey's house, he heads to the church where he meets Jackie Torrance. Jackie Torrance. Think about that, King fans. The pastor speaks about Lacey and paints him as a good and God-fearing man. The pastor tells Henry it's nice to see redemption in the flesh, referring to the death of Henry's father and the suspicion surrounding it. The pastor is played by Aaron Staton, who was Ken Cosgrove on Mad Men. He was one of the few decent people on Mad Men, which means that I found him kind of boring most of the time. But he had like an eye patch in later seasons, and he looked super cool, and he was like a wannabe sci-fi writer. I do not remember how he got the eye patch. I think it was kind of funny. We then get a quick scene with the officer and the kid, where the officer seems to be questioning the things he's seen recently. Then we jump over to the new Warden T. Porter, as she drinks at a hotel, wondering what her predecessor was up to with the prisoner. As she contemplates it, she is joined by Alan Pangborn. They talk, and he relates a story where Lacey told him that he had found out what was causing all of Castle Rock's trouble. He finally figured out what was wrong with Castle Rock. He had always thought that the devil was a metaphor, but now he knew the devil was a boy, and Dale said he caught him and locked the devil in a box. We are finally getting some kind of hard-ass, grizzled Scott Glenn here, and it's a very welcome sight. We didn't get much of Scott Glenn in the first episode. We get a little bit more here, and it looks like we're leaning a bit more to the future. More on that later. But Scott Glenn is super cool. This is taken from a GQ interview with Glenn. He is 75 years old. I think he's like 77 now, because I think this was 2016. He trains with SEAL Team 6. He open water spearfishes, which requires him to punch sharks. He rides motorcycles. He does martial arts with knives. He only stopped ice climbing because his doctor told him to. He stopped skydiving at the request of his wife, but he might pick it up again. Maybe he's doing it. This was 2 years ago. He might be doing it again. As Pangborn leaves, he tells Porter not to let that fucking kid out. Excuse the language. Determined to get answers, she works with her assistant, Reeves, and moves the prisoner to share a cell with a swastika tattooed inmate. The mysterious prisoner warns his new cellmate not to touch him. Shortly after, the tattooed inmate is dead, riddled with cancer. Yeah, we'll see that a little bit later on in the movie. There's also a really gross box of fingernails in this scene, and it really messed with me, and I can't explain why, really, other than it's just disgusting. We are back with Henry and his mother now. Henry comes to the realization that he's older now than his dad ever was. This is a really nice character moment. I like this scene quite a bit. Then we do go to a flashback that shows a young Molly Strand, Melanie Linsky's character, who is Henry's neighbor at the time, and it shows her being kind of mildly obsessed with Henry. We jump back to the present, where Molly has dinner with her sister, and it's revealed that she believes she's suffering from a, quote, undiagnosed psychic affliction, and then she hits her sister up for money. By the way, I had less of a problem with the flashbacks in this episode. There's only a couple of them, and I think it's maybe because they were just built around one character, instead of jumping a little bit all over the place like I thought the first one did, or maybe I've just kind of given in. Honestly, that's probably more it. I was a little cranky with them yesterday, and I apologize for that. Henry meets Jackie again in a bar. She fills him in on how the town turned what happened to him and his father into an urban legend. The prevailing theory is that Henry pushes his father off a high bluff and then ran away. As Jackie asks him if another rumor is true, that he lost 3 toes to frostbite, Dennis Aluski enters the bar. He passes Henry a note to meet him later. There is a mention of the years in between his return to Castle Rock and his disappearance of kids running around dressed as Henry for Halloween in blackface. I think this was a nice little touch to the kind of underlying racism that might be lurking in Castle Rock. Once again, another King theme that is touched upon. Henry goes home to find Alan digging up a dead dog in the backyard. Ruth Deaver thinks the dog is still alive, and Pangborn is assuring her that it isn't. As Henry and Alan talk, they are watched from across the street by Molly. We get a close-up of the dead dog numerous times in this. It sucked. Speaking of dead dogs, check out our Fear podcast. There is one moment that broke me. This was worse than the fingernails. This was more unsettling than the fingernails. This was a very unsettling episode for me. We flash back again to Molly. She witnessed Henry get into a car late at night, and when Henry's father dies, A deputy questions her. Molly states she knows nothing about his disappearance, but when she's alone, visible breath comes from her mouth as if the room was freezing. I used to sleep with the window cracked in the dead of winter, so I kind of get it. But no, there's something else going on with Molly here. We don't know what yet. Henry and Zalewski stage a scene to get him access to the prisoner. They call it an act of God, where they arrange for a traveling church to set up outside the prison. Henry blends in with the crowd and stands near the fence by the prison yard. This is also when we see the Nazi prisoner carted out of the prison dead, and we see that he was riddled with cancer. Zalewski brings the prisoner out to the yard so that he can meet with Henry. Elsewhere, a dog digs up Lacey's severed head, which was never recovered when they found his corpse. A lot of dogs. So far in Castle Rock. Maybe we were leading to Cujo. I don't know. Here's the voiceover we hear from Lacey over kind of the final few scenes. And this is also, we end the episode with Alan Pangborn in his car reading the letter and then proceeding to burn the letter. But here's that voiceover that ends the episode. Never again let him see the light of day. That's what God told me. He told me where to find him, how his prison should be built, how to put an end to all the horrors we've seen in this town. What he didn't tell me was how full of doubt I'd be about what we did or where I would end up in the end. I fear for this place. I fear for what's to come, Alan. But I also know that Castle Rock still has a defender, even in the dead of night. Then we cut to Alan burning the letter in his car. To which I say, hell yes. This was a great ending, and it got me kind of psyched for what's to come. And we could be seeing Alan Pangborn taking care of business. I like this episode much better, honestly, than the first one. This felt like, I wish I would have watched this after the first episode. This felt like the second half of like a 2-hour premiere episode, pilot, whatever you want to call it. We get a lot more insight into the town, its religion, the people that inhabit it, the fear people live in while they are there. We start to know the characters a little more. We get some insights on the main characters. The actors are all doing very strong work here, and all of the pieces and the characters are coming into place now. I'm looking forward especially to seeing more of Scott Glenn as Pangborn. So, good show. Liked the second episode quite a bit. Let's touch on one quick piece of news. Locke and Key, the graphic novel series from Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, is set for series order at Netflix. This had bounced around quite a bit. I'm going to read this is from Deadline. I'm going to read from Deadline's official article on the matter. It's official. 4 months after Hulu opted not to go forward with its Lock and Key pilot, The Project, an adaptation of Joe Hill's comic Lock and Key from Carlton Cuse and IDW Entertainment, has closed a deal for a 10-episode series order at rival Netflix. Talks between Netflix and the Lock and Key producers started shortly after Hulu surprisingly passed on the pilot in March. Netflix is not picking up the existing Hulu pilot written by Joe Hill to series, but will be redeveloping the scripts and recasting the new series. Joining Hill and Cuse on the creative team of the new version are Aaron Eli Collette. He wrote on Heroes, and Meredith Averill. She was the co-executive producer for CW's Jane the Virgin, which I've seen a couple times, funny show, and she currently serves as the co-showrunner and executive producer for Netflix's upcoming series, The Haunting of Hill House. The Netflix series was created by Hill, developed by Cuse. The first episode will be written by Hill and Collette. Cuse and Averill will serve as showrunners. Lock and Key is a horror fantasy series that revolves around three siblings who, after the gruesome murder of their father, move to their ancestral home in Massachusetts, only to find that the house has magical keys that give them a vast array of powers and abilities. Little do they know, a devious demon also wants the keys and will stop at nothing to obtain them. One of the young actors is going to be played by Jackson Robert Scott from It. This was actually ordered to pilot in 2017 for Hulu, but then there were some management changes and they decided not to move forward with it. This also, I remember, was being kicked around in 2010, 2011. I believe they filmed a pilot for Fox, and it had Alex Kurtzman and Roberta Orsi, and back then the pilot I think had I'm looking at the article right now. It had Nick Stahl in it. It did not go to series. It was going to go to series on Fox. I am excited for this quite a bit. I've only read the first couple. I read them as they first came out. This was my introduction to Joe Hill. I did not know Stephen King's son was a writer. And the first two graphic novels, Welcome to Lovecraft and Head Games. I believe I own Crown of Shadows, though. I kind of fell out of comics on and off over the years. But this was kind of my first introduction to Joe Hill, and I really, really like those two, and I kind of want to catch up now that all of the different graphic novels are out and collected. They also released an Audible version, if that's your thing, a couple years ago with Haley Joel Osment and Kate Mulgrew from Star Trek Voyager. It's very much a New England horror story. The characters are great. The mythology is rich. The art is phenomenal. I think Carlton Cuse is a great fit. He was a part of Lost, Bates Motel. He's doing a show right now that I'm about through the second season of, and it's on its third season. It's probably its last season, called Colony, that is really, really good. It's on USA Network. It's also on Netflix. Check it out if you're into kind of social sci-fi, I would call it. But yeah, really looking forward to Lock and Key. Can't wait to see when it hits Netflix. What to watch this weekend? Of course, those first 3 episodes of Castle Rock are out now. But also we've got a couple of limited theatrical and VOD releases. One of them is called Our House. Here's the plot description. A machine that can bring back dead loved ones seems like a great idea. And I'm gonna stop right there and say I'm not 100% sure that seems like a great idea. Until you unleash the wrong spirits. Well, there you go. When his parents are killed in a car accident, science whiz Ethan must leave behind college and his girlfriend to care for his younger brother and sister. By day, he juggles the responsibilities of raising 2 kids. By night, he tinkers in the garage on an invention he hopes will change the world, a machine that can generate wireless electricity. He gets more than he bargained for, however, when the device awakens the dead souls that haunt the house, as Ethan and his siblings find out. This is in theaters, limited theaters, right now. It's also streaming. This is from IFC Midnight, who has released movies like The Babadook, Personal Shopper, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Recently, IFC Midnight has a pretty good track record. The reviews right now, last I checked, were at 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, so the reviews are pretty good. This is from writer Nathan Parker, who wrote the Jason Statham movie Blitz, which was okay, and the Duncan Jones Sam Rockwell movie Moon, which I loved. This is also from director Anthony Scott Burns, who did the Father's Day segment in the horror anthology movie Holidays. And if I recall correctly, the plot of that has a lot in common with the plot of this movie, Our House, if I'm recalling it correctly. I remember it not being my favorite segment on Father's Day, but I also remember it being very stylish as well. I believe, if I recall, it's a young woman finds a tape of her, like a cassette tape recorded by her dead father, and uses it to kind of track him down through the afterlife. I remember it being very stylish, very cool. So that's out. The other one is The Row. With a serial killer preying upon girls on campus, Riley, an incoming freshman, finds herself entangled in a sinister plot involving a dark secret at the sorority that she pledged. While her father, Cole, the detective... By the way, Cole is played by former UFC champion Randy Couture in what looks like a interesting performance. The detective investigating the case must uncover the identity of the killer before it's too late, and Riley becomes the next victim. This is rated R for bloody violence, language, drug and alcohol abuse, and some sexual content. So really all the good stuff. Directed by Marty Beckerman, written by Sarah Skogel. Once again, limited theaters, on disc, streaming, 82 minutes long. Right now, I checked, there is 1 review on Rotten Tomatoes as of last night. It's from Kimber Myers at the LA Times. She says, The Row is somehow even less fun than you'd imagine an EDM-infused, party-soaked serial killer film would be. I don't know, that sounds kind of fun, but if it's less fun, then I guess it's probably bad. And it's barely even a horror movie beyond its central concept. Oof, that doesn't sound good. I watched both of these trailers just a few minutes ago. Our House looks much better. Our House actually looks kind of good. I think Our House might be the one I check out this weekend. So there you go. That's my pick of the weekend if you aren't watching Castle Rock. Even if you are, you can probably fit in our house. The road does not look very good. I would not suggest that. But hey, I'm not going to stop you. All right, that's it for today. I am taking the weekend off. I'm going to try to watch episode 3 of Castle Rock over the weekend. Check out our new episode on Fear. It should be in your podcast feeds now. You can subscribe to Horror Movie Yearbook on any of your favorite podcasting streaming services, iTunes, Overcast, all those, Stitcher, all those good things. But yeah, new episode drops today. We are going to be doing The Brood in a couple weeks, and then we're going to do kind of a special episode after that, which we still have to decide on. Midwest Game Nerds are coming out with a new episode. Gone to Texas, the Preacher podcast, if you're a fan of that, check those guys out. Oh, one more thing. If you are really into Castle Rock, we tweeted about this yesterday, but if you are really into Castle Rock, check out the Stephen King cast. That guy knows his stuff. Stephen King cast, he broke down the first episode yesterday, and he's going to be breaking down every episode moving forward. He does a great job. He is an expert on all things King. Check out his podcast. Patreon.com/MidwestPodNet. You can donate to the podcast network for as little as $1 a month. I think that's it. Everybody, have a great weekend. I really do appreciate you listening. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a good weekend.